by science.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there a gap for the argument of design?
Can you elaborate on that? I'm not sure I understand.
Well, the argument of design, like, how can it be refuted?
Through other naturalistic mechanisms, I don't understand.
Well, no, I'm not clear on that.
Oh, okay. Well, Dennett developed an analogy of the skyhook and the crane, I think it was, where the skyhook, I think, was the idea of God is the ultimate, and then Dawkins says that he's the ultimate Boeing 747. What he means is that the probability of creating this skyhook that comes out of nowhere and just kind of lifts things up and makes design happens is so much more improbable than the idea of natural selection, which is a natural process that explains design, or that explains the illusion of design. So it's the analogy of the skyhook coming from above versus the crane, which kind of works from below. I think that was the idea with that. Anyways, there are two different ways of describing design. Dawkins talks about, I forget the term he uses, designoid or something, for things that appear designed but really aren't, and that they're natural phenomena. And of course, life is evolved. So designoid, I guess, would be the more proper term to describe that. Does that get to your question?
Sort of. I was wondering if I could ask another question, unless anybody has a question. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. The next question is, you said that most of the wars and all this violence comes from religion.
That was me paraphrasing one of the new atheists.
Right. And wasn't Stalin and Hitler both atheists?
It's a good question. I often have that lobbed at me. They were, but as many of the new atheists point out, their problem is with faith. It's with ideologies that do not stand up under evidence, and people's clinging to them without evidentiary support. Communism is just such an ideology. I mentioned the example of Lysenkoism genetics as, precisely because I anticipated this sort of question. The idea here was that, according to Russian doctrine, Soviet doctrine, they liked better the idea of Lamarckian evolution, as I understand it, the idea that traits could be passed on. It fit better into the whole notion of the class struggle, I suppose, than natural selection, where things were, where there was this element of randomness to it. So that's the direction they went in with their research for like 30 years. As a result, tens of millions of people died of starvation, because they were so indoctrinated with that notion that was, the right theory of genetics. And, so that sort of closed-minded ideology, I wouldn't call that scientific. I would call that religious. I mean, it's a faith-based idea. I mean, so it's a faith-based, communism in that sense is a faith-based economic system. A lot of things can dissolve into non-evidentiary supported ideologies, not just religion. Now, the problem is with religion, because religion makes faith out to be the pinnacle of all things, this idea, don't question anything, is seen as virtue. Whereas in communism, there was an element of faith, yes, but the central tenets of communism weren't really faith per se. Religion is the mean par excellence because you can't even criticize it, so of course it's going to get passed on so readily. So this is what their problem, the new atheist problem is, in particular with religion, because faith is the core virtue, and it makes it impossible to criticize. You can criticize communism, right? Of course, communists didn't do it in the Soviet Union until they finally, demolished the whole system. But it wasn't, communism didn't say there was nothing that said you can't criticize communism. The way religion has this built-in notion that it's actually a virtue to believe it blindly.
Okay, so if religion is therefore, if religion was made up, then using it as an excuse for war, can't you say that religion has always been used as an excuse for war, but the anger was always just there? For example, when, I don't know, a long time ago, I guess, when people didn't have much knowledge, there'd be an island, let's say, this is just an example, an island with pointy rocks, and then another island with food. The island with pointy rocks would just take their pointy rocks and go get their food. It would kill people. Okay. So today, I just think religion is being used as an excuse for violence. I don't doubt that, but I think the anger is still there, and regardless of that, there will still be violence.
Yeah, nobody would suggest that religion is the only factor. But there's an argument about whether it's the deciding factor, and I think in many cases it is. Look, people can distinguish themselves in any number of ways, race, sex, ethnicity, etc. But again, religion has, as I said, this built-in notion that not accepting evidence or critically examining your beliefs is also a virtue. And in no other way that humans divide each other is that also an aspect. So that's why I think religious faith is even more dangerous than other ways of dividing ourselves, precisely because it smacks of anti-cross-cultural criticism. So you're quite right. I mean, things are nuanced and complicated, but I still see religious faith as the greatest danger, precisely because you can't question it. And I'm a big proponent of, before everything else, free speech. I think free speech is paramount. I mean, hate speech is a tricky business. What I think the best solution to hate speech is more good speech, right? Not to close down the avenues of speech, because you don't want to go in that direction. It's totalitarian. And any system that has a built-in tendency to shut down conversation is dangerous.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
First, I'd just like, hello everyone, I'm Fatima. First, I would just like to say that this is really good. I'm enjoying it. I love philosophical thought, free inquiry. This is excellent. And philosophy is one of my favorite subjects. However, I'm also an English major, and I'm a poet. And I'm wondering, you talk about addressing the issue as far as moderates are concerned, agnostics are concerned. How about a poet? What about in the field of literature? What I mean is, for example, magical realism. There is a certain, I believe in art. That's this one thing that I do defend as much as you defend what you are saying. And the aesthetic reality, the ideal reality. For example, I love 100 Years of Solitude by Garcia Marquez. Now, if you are saying that any kind of supernaturalism, any kind of thing that's saying, it's not rational or reason-based, then you're questioning all of that too. Like the romantics. I mean, name it. There's a lot of I write all the time, and there are even certain words which you will not be able. For example, there's a holy silence in the class right now, in this room right now. Now I'm using the word holy. People think of church. How am I supposed to? What kind of impact are you wishing for language? And if it is going to have that impact, as much as I love free thought, I love people thinking, and I hate everything that you are hating. However, if I can't speak like that, it's going to be a loss for language and a loss for poetry. That's my main concern. Yep. And it's just to, go ahead with the argument.
Yeah, thanks for that. Those are all very valid points. Thank you for being the first person to refer to me as a philosopher. Got my degree in engineering. It sounds so weird, but that's thank you. There's a few things. Maybe you're referring to what I said about language before. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with using religious terms if they convey a metaphorical sense. I love metaphors. My problem was with allowing the cultural competitors to define the terms for us and make that a limitation to us being included in discussion. So atheist, is defined against theism, and as I said, like the Multi-Faith Center or the Multi-Faith Council, making only faith groups accepted because of that name in there, and it goes beyond that. So no, metaphors are powerful. As far as aesthetic reality goes, I wouldn't deny that at all. In fact, I mentioned a number of times the non-overlapping magisteria concept of Gould and others. All Gould said was that there was science that had truth claims, there was religion that had ethical claims, and then he actually did mention poetry and aesthetics as being a third completely separate area. So when I talk about the new atheists sort of trying to show that science and religion aren't compatible in the Noma sense, it's not to say that science is everything, that science also intrudes into the third area of aesthetics and myth and all. Those are very powerful areas.
We also exist. As you say, you exist. The poets also exist.
Right.
We also need to know where we go. If we're not going in religion, we're not going in science, and where are we? Who are we?
And storytelling and myths,